anticipation breed apathy. I sit on my ass.
Welcome to Pure Rank. I'm Steve, and this is a podcast where I pick a band or artist and rank my favorite albums of theirs. On this episode, I will be talking about one of my all-time favorite bands, Bad Religion. I decided to feature Bad Religion for my first episode because I wanted to use a band I knew pretty well as a sort of pilot for this podcast. So please be patient with me as I figured this out. I think I'm going to have a lot of fun doing these shows, and I hope you have fun listening to them. So, Bad Religion is a band, obviously, that was formed in 1980 by Greg Graffin, Jay Bentley, Jay Ziskraut, and Brett Gurewitz. At the time of its formation, all the members were still in high school, and they played their first show in November of 1980 in Burbank, California. Their first release was the 1981 self-titled EP, and as of this recording, they have released 17 studio albums, 2 live albums, 3 compilation albums, 3 EPs, and 2 live DVDs. So they've been busy boys. They've gone through multiple lineup changes in their 40 plus years. And I'm not going to go through all the different members, but I will say that the main core of the band, at least to me, has always been Greg Graffin, Jay Bentley, and Brett Gurewitz. Brett did leave for a while, but came back. But he has, I feel like, has been an integral part of their songwriting team. The band is known for their multiple vocal harmonies in their songs, and they have influenced countless other punk bands such as Green Day, The Offspring, Rancid, Pennywise, and a whole bunch more. There is a book called Do What You Want. It was published in 2020. That is an autobiography of the band that was co-written by the band itself, hence the term autobiography, but also co-written by a guy named Jim Ruland. So I started listening to Bad Religion back when I was in high school. And the first album that I heard of theirs was How Could Hell Be Any Worse? I've seen the band fly 3 times. I think only 3 times, strangely enough. The first time I saw them was in Dallas, Texas in 1996. They were touring for the Gray Race. I was actually back in Oklahoma on leave. I was in the military at the time. I was stationed in Alaska, and I was just home for like a week visiting the folks, and a friend of mine and his girlfriend at the time came and sort of kidnapped me and said, "We're going to Dallas." And I'm like, "All right, I'm going to Dallas." And they did not tell me until we actually got into Dallas what we were doing there. My friend knew that I was a big Bad Religion fan and told me, "Yeah, we're going to see Bad Religion." And I was pretty excited. Never seen the band before. Missed them several times coming through, and I was glad to finally have gotten to see them. Second time I saw them was in Oklahoma City. It was in 2014, I think. They were playing in this big field. I don't even remember the name of the venue. I know there was a name. I'm not even sure what's there now, but it was just a big giant field. And they were on the same bill with some other punk bands. Stiff Little Fingers was on that bill. Pennywise. And the headlining act was The Offspring. Now, I, of course, am not, well, you don't know this, but I'm not really a big fan of The Offspring. I don't hate them. I'm just not really into them. And I went to see Bad Religion and Pennywise, but mostly Bad Religion. But my daughter had never seen The Offspring, and she had heard of them and really wanted to go see them, so I went with her. And we got through maybe a third of their set, The Offspring, and my daughter was just like, yeah, I don't like these guys, so we can go. So we left, but she did like Bad Religion. I don't remember getting an impression of Pennywise from her, but Bad Religion was great. Yeah, yes, they are. Third time I saw them was at Riot Fest in Chicago, and that was in the fall of 2022. I was living in Michigan at the time, and Riot Fest came through. Riot Fest is always in Chicago. Didn't used to be. They used to travel around, but at this point, it's just in Chicago now. But I hadn't planned on going, but my youngest child really wanted to go see My Chemical Romance, and like I said, I wasn't planning on going to Riot Fest, but they really wanted to go and see MCR, so I was like, all right, I guess we'll go. And saw Bad Religion there on the second day. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the second day. I'm actually planning to go see them again here in a few months in Dallas again. They are going to be on the same bill as Social Distortion. Now, I plan to go see them. I say that because I haven't bought my tickets yet. And some of the dates have been sold out. So I might go and I might not. Let's go ahead and jump into these rankings. We're going to talk about my 5 favorite albums. Let me back up a little bit and kind of tell you what's going on with this podcast, what I'm actually doing. So I pick a band and I go through and listen to their albums, and I decide which are my 5 favorites, and then I rank them 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1 being my absolute favorite, 5, counting down, like a countdown show. So that is what we're doing here, and like I said, this is kind of a pilot episode to just see how this thing goes, but so I'm going to jump in, and I'm going to start with my number 5. And my number 5 is Generator.
Like a rock, like a planet, like a fucking atom bomb, I'll remain unperturbed by the joy and the madness that I encounter everywhere I turn. I've seen it all along, in books and magazines, like a drink before dying, like a pornographic scene. There's a bar behind the window, there's an ugly laughing man, like a hummingbird in silence, like the blood on my door. It's a generator. Me clean and I will run until I reach the shore. I've known it all along, like the bone under my skin, like actors in a photograph, like paper in the wind. There's a hammer by the window, there's a knife on the floor, like turbines in darkness, like the blood on my door. It's the generator.
So, Generator. Generator was released in March, on the 13th of March in 1992 by Epitaph Records. It was their 6th studio album, and it was recorded in May 1991 at West Beach Recorders in Hollywood. The guys in Bad Religion produced the album themselves, and this album was actually recorded live in the studio. A lot of bands don't do that anymore. But at the time, the band lineup was Greg Graffin on vocals, Greg Hetson playing guitar, Brett Gurewitz also on guitar with backing vocals, Jay Bentley on bass and backing vocals, and on drums was Bobby Scher. This was his first album with the band, replacing longtime drummer Pete Finestone. And what I just played, I played you the title track to Generator. And the thing about the song Generator, Brett Gurewitz has said that the song is a metaphor for God. He was quoted once, he said, the vibe that I'm trying to give is like if you've ever been in a room and the air conditioner's humming, you don't notice it, of course, because it's a constant hum. Then it turns off and you suddenly notice how quiet it is because it went away. That's the generator. It's just behind everything. It's funny. God and spirituality has been the central conflict of my entire life. Very interesting idea of what the song is about. It's a really good song. So the reason that this is on my top 5 in the first place, if you're interested in that, and if you're listening to this, I imagine you are, it's, as opposed to other albums, because they've got a crap ton of albums, the reason this was on there is it's kind of a nostalgic thing for me. It was actually the first album that I heard of theirs when it was released. In other words, I'd been listening to Bad Religion. This is the first one I heard upon its release, so it kind of has this nostalgic feel to it. But there, also, there's just really a lot of good songs on here. Like Generator is probably my favorite on the album. The Answer is another really good one. I love that one. No Direction is good. Only Entertainment is good. So those are kind of the highlights of the album. And while I am talking about the album Generator, I wanted to mention another artist. There's a point to this. A young lady by the name of Emily Davis that I stumbled across on, I want to say it was YouTube, a while back, many years ago. And at the time, she was doing she was also a really big fan of Bad Religion, and she was doing covers of Bad Religion on an acoustic guitar, and I thought that was really interesting. And she did a cover of the same song, Generator, that I just played. So I wanted to play you a little bit of that because I think you'll like it.
Like a rock, like a planet, like a fucking atom bomb, I'll remain unperturbed by the joy and the madness that I encounter everywhere I turn. I've seen it all before, in the books and magazines,
So yeah, that was Emily Davis playing Generator. She's got a lot out there. Bad Religion covers on her acoustic and whatnot. So really cool stuff. I'm going to put a link to her YouTube in the show notes there. And that brings us to number 4 on my list. And that album is 1994's Stranger Than Fiction. So this is an interesting album in that it was the first album they did on a major label. They signed to Atlantic Records. This album was released in August of 1994 by Atlantic. It was re-released by Epitaph Records later in September of 2008. The album was recorded between April and May of 1994 at Rumbo Recorders in Canoga Park, Los Angeles. And this album was co-produced. It was produced by Bad Religion and Andy Wallace. The band lineup was identical to the one on Generator. And another thing about this album, this was Brett Gurewitz's last album with the band until he returned for 2002's The Process of Belief. During the tour for this album, I guess there was some misunderstandings or I really don't know what was going on. Wasn't there. But he did state that he wanted to focus more time on his label, which was Epitaph Records. A lot of good tunes on this one. Tiny Voices, The Handshake, the title track, Marked, Inner Logic, What It Is. There were some guest spots on this album. Tim Armstrong of Rancid did some guest vocals on the song Television. And Jim Lindberg of Pennywise also did some guest vocals on the song Marked. This song was their first to chart on the Billboard 200. It peaked at 87. I'm going to be honest, I don't care about the Billboard 200. Most of the stuff on there is crap that I don't even listen to, but it's kind of cool that a cool band like Bad Religion ended up on Billboard. Like I said, it was the first album released by Atlantic. And the song ranked number 1 on Guitar World's Top 10 Guitar Albums of 1994. Cool little magazine there. So the clip I am going to play for you from this song is the song Marked.
If I'm a monster, I am a winning one. This roller coaster ride is an enticing one. On the tip of the continuum, going away like a disorder, carrying me like a vessel to water. And everything you see leaves a mark on your soul. Everything you feel leaves a mark on your soul. Everything you touch leaves a mark on your soul. Everything you make leaves a mark on your soul.
So that was Marked from Stranger Than Fiction. Favorite song from the album, just something about it resonates for me. So the song itself is about how strong an impression people can leave on you. About how like everybody that you meet, engage with, read about, or even see on a movie or other form of media, be it television or whatever the case, somehow leaves a mark on your soul. And it's just a really good, catchy song, in my opinion. I really like it. That brings us to number 3 on the top 5 list. Number 3 is How Could Hell Be Any Worse? Their debut full-length was released January 19th, 1982 by Epitaph Records. No big surprise there. It was reissued in 1988 and was also reissued kind of on the 1991 compilation album 8085. And then again, it was remastered and released in 2004 with the same tracks as those that were on 8085. So 8085 was an album that consisted of How Could Hell Be Any Worse, as well as songs. It was a collection of How Could Hell Be Any Worse, as well as the 2 EPs that the band released. So their 1980 self-titled EP, Bad Religion, and then also the 1985 EP, Back to the Known. Additionally, it included 3 tracks from a compilation that Smoke 7 Records put out in 1981 called Public Service. It included tracks not only from Bad Religion, but also from a few bands like Circle One, Red Cross, and some other bands. So How Could It All Be Any Worse was essentially reissued as or let me back up a second. Actually, maybe 8085 was reissued with the title How Could Hell Be Any Worse? So, in any case, either way, the debut version and the reissues are all like really good albums. They were. It was recorded between October 1980 and January 1981 at Track Records in Hollywood. It was produced by Bad Religion, and at the time of the recording, the lineup was Greg Graffin on vocals, Brett Gurewitz on guitar, Jay Bentley on bass, and there were 2 drummers on the recording of this album. Founding member Jay Ziskraut, I don't know how to pronounce his name, I'm sorry, Jay, started out with the recording, and then most of the album was recorded over 2 nights in October. But at some point during the recording, he quit the band. I don't know the story behind all that. You can probably look it up on the internet somewhere. I didn't bother. I'm so well prepared. And then after he quit, Pete Finestone took over and finished the album with them in January. Interestingly, I think I had read somewhere that Pete Finestone was actually like a drum tech for them, or a roadie or something like that. But yeah, he finished the album with them, and they got out this debut LP.
It's like what it's made of, and it's what it's
And that was We're Only Gonna Die, which is the lead-off track for How Could Hell Be Any Worse. A lot of really good songs on this one too. Can't go wrong with their first album though. But We're Only Gonna Die, great song. Fuck Armageddon, This Is Hell, another great song. In the Night, Voice of God is Government. Man, I wouldn't even know where to stop. I mean, they're all really great great songs rather. So this, as I mentioned earlier in the show, this was the first Bad Religion album that I heard. A friend of mine had the cassette, and I'm not even really sure where he had picked it up at the time, but we were both immediately enamored with what this band was doing. This was one of the first punk rock albums that I heard. We were listening at the time, high school, late 80s, early 90s. We were listening to a lot of Black Flag and Dead Kennedys and Circle Jerks. Probably some Minor Threat in there. And then got a hold of this, and it was just kind of game changer. Descendants was another band I was thinking of. I think at the time I had heard, I wasn't as big a Descendants fan then as I am now. At the time, I think the only album of theirs that I had heard was the live album Liveage. A friend of mine had the cassette, again, different friend, and played it for me. I was like, yeah, that was really cool. But yeah, so what Bad Religion was doing with this album, it was just different. I don't know. It was just really good. I mean, maybe the harmonies, but just a really, really good album. So yeah, How Could Hell Be Any Worse? Clocks in at number 3. Number 2 is Suffer. So Suffer was released in September 1988 by Epitaph Records. It was recorded in April of 1988 at West Beach Recorders in Hollywood. If I'm remembering right, I think West Beach Recorders was Brett Gurowitz's recording studio. I could be wrong. If I am, please tell me. But yeah, this album was also produced by Bad Religion. This one had a little bit of a different lineup than How Could Hell Be Any Worse. Pete Feinstein was still playing drums for him. But Greg Hetson was actually added as a second guitar player on the album. Now, Greg Hetson actually played briefly on the album How Could Hell Be Any Worse. He played a solo on, man, I don't remember. Part 3. The song was Part 3 on How Could Hell Be Any Worse. And then eventually he ended up becoming a member of the band. For the better, I think. I think they were a lot better with two guitar players, and their music just got kind of notched up. Really great album, Suffer. There's just not enough I can say about this album. It is really good. Not my number 2, or not my number 1. It is my number 2. I'll explain why later. But yeah, really, really great album. This is actually cited by some critics as one of the most important punk albums of all time. This one also had some guest musicians on it. Donita Sparks and Susie Gardner, both from L7, played guest guitar parts. I don't know if they were solos or just additional guitar, on the song Best for You. And then Jennifer Finch, strangely enough, also from L7, provided guest vocals on the song Part 2, The Numbers Game. Again, lots of really great songs. If I could narrow it down to the highlights, I would go with You Are the Government, Suffer, the title track, Do What You Want, which is what we played at the very top of the show. And then this song that I'm going to play for you. This is Give You Nothing.
Looking but they never can see all the corruption and the dishonesty. Think about the kind of places you never known. You're a man, so I'm out. Yet you're alone, so I give you me. I give you nothing. I give you me. I give you nothing. So you got a place that you call your own, but you gotta have it like you're in the zone. Look around and have someone if you were alive. You're a sidewalk slave and think of bionic time.
So yeah, Give You Nothing. Probably my second favorite track from the album. My first being Do What You Want. Funny story about this album. First time I heard it, I had not really been listening to any Bad Religion. Can't really say why. Just wasn't. I was listening to other stuff. I don't know. Up until this time, really the only one that I was listening to was How Can Hell Be Any Worse? And at the time, it was the 80-85 compilation. But anyway, I was playing in some random band at the time, and the guitar player was a huge Bad Religion fan, like huge, probably like definitely at the time bigger than I was. And in the band, he wanted us to play a cover of the song "Give You Nothing." So he starts playing it. I'm like, yeah, I've never heard that song. So he was just like, what? So he ended up playing the song for me, and I liked it. I was like, oh, this is really good. Yeah, it doesn't sound anything like what I've been listening to. I mean, it did. It was Bad Religion. It was noticeably better, obviously. So I was impressed. And, even now I can agree with most people. This is one of the most important punk albums of all time. That being said, it is not my favorite Bad Religion album, because the number one spot goes to the 1989 album No Control.
Brother Christian, with your high and mighty errand, your action speaks so loud I can't hear a word you're saying. Hey sister, bleeding heart, with all of your compassion, your labors through the hurt but can't assuage temptation. Hey man of science, with your perfect rules of measure, can you improve this place with the data that you gather? Hey Mother Mercy, can your laws be improved forever? Is your fecundity a tremble or a treasure? And I wanna conquer the world, give all the idiots a brand new religion, put an end to poverty, uncleanliness and toil, promote equality and all of my decisions with a quick wink of the eye, and God, you must be joking.
So that song that I just played a clip of is I Want to Conquer the World. So, No Control was released on November 2nd, 1989 by Epitaph Records. It was recorded in June 1989, also at West Beach Recorders in Hollywood, also produced by Bad Religion. Band lineup was the exact same lineup as that of Suffer. Some of the highlights on this album, man, this is a rough one because I just love this entire album. Change of Ideas, I Want to Conquer the World, It Must Look Pretty Appealing, Sanity, I Want Something More, Big Bang, No Control. Jeez, whole album's good. So the first time I heard this album was actually the same day that our guitar player played some clips off of, or some songs from Suffer for me. But for whatever reason, and as much as I did enjoy Suffer at the time, I just kind of gravitated more toward this album. To me, and maybe this is just because I heard this album directly after having listened to Suffer. It always seemed like this album was kind of almost a sequel to its predecessor. A sequel that, in this case, just somehow turned out better than the original. To me, it's a little bit more aggressive than its predecessor. But it just hit me stronger. Not only is this my favorite Bad Religion album, but the song I Want to Conquer the World is probably my overall favorite Bad Religion song. I actually talked about this album with some friends on their podcast. My friend Justin and his brother Dylan do a podcast called Punk Lotto Pod. I will put the show notes, I will put a link to their podcast in the show notes. But yeah, they do a podcast, and on their patron exclusive episodes, they do these episodes where if you're a certain tier patron, you are allowed to pick the album that they talk about. And I picked No Control, and they invited me on the show to talk about the album and my thoughts on it. So definitely check out Punk Lotto Pod. It is a really good punk rock and punk rock adjacent podcast. Anyway, so yeah, No Control is my number one album by Bad Religion. And yeah, that is the first episode of Pure Rank, discussing my 5 favorite albums of Bad Religion. Hope you liked it. If you've got any comments as to how I can improve it, or anything else you'd like to hear on a future episode, please let me know. I will have the contact information for the show in the show notes. And if you get a chance, please leave a rating and a review for the show. And but yeah, just let me know how it's doing. I liked doing this. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope doing more of these in the future. But with that note, I am going to do a few podcast shout outs. I already did one, so Punk Lotto Pod, definitely want to check that one out. Another really good music podcast is One Band, 5 Songs. That is done by my friend Dave Brown. And the premise of that show is he discusses a band through the lens of 5 of their classic songs. It's not really a ranking, it's just he picks 5 songs from throughout their career and discusses those songs and talks about the band. Another really good one is called Let's Play 10. That is essentially, the 10 is for 10 songs that they play. Usually they play 10 songs. Sometimes they play more. But the idea is that they're supposed to play 10. And they play, the hosts are MP and Ben, and each one of them picks 5 songs, and the songs are almost exclusively from like DIY small label artists, or maybe even under an unsigned artist. Can't say I've heard any big name bands on the show. So I think that's the whole premise, to do underground bands. Another punk rock podcast that I want to give a shout out to is called The Punk Rockette Show. And that is put together by Emily, I think is her name. I might be pronouncing that wrong. I hope I'm not. And she does, she plays music and does interviews and just kind of shows her passion for punk rock. And another really good one. So I will have links to all of these shows in the show notes. But on that note, I'm out of here. So again, I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you come back for the next episode of Pure Rank.